All right, everybody, welcome back. Doing my last Bond video for the night. This is the third. Yeah, third? Fourth. Third. Yeah. Oh, okay, because I did Bond girls and I did Bond villains, and yeah, so now a little crazy. Now I'm doing. I just want to rank the Bond actors. This is the last Bond video that I said I'm going to make up until another Bond movie comes out. So I'm going to rank the James Bond actors as far as how well I thought they fit the character of James Bond and just me enjoying them on the screen. Okay. Number 6, George Lazenby. The reason Honor Majesty Secret Service doesn't work for me is because he never worked for me as Bond. There's scenes in the film where he's being dubbed when he's undercover. I don't care for that. I never thought he had the suaveness. He has he has a bit of charisma and charm where you buy that like deep down he's a good guy. But I don't ever buy that he's actually like an assassin. So that's a part that I don't really ever feel like, oh yeah, he could really like go around killing people. He just doesn't come across as that guy. He comes across as a guy that was like popular in high school, maybe joined the military, joined the Navy, Royal Navy, then gets into like the British Secret Service, and it's like, okay, he's an agent. But really, he's not in it to get dirty. He's trying, he finds his girl and he's like, now I've fallen in love with you and I want to quit my job. I don't know. I just didn't buy him as like the hardened James Bond. I know he hadn't got there yet, but he doesn't do anything for me. George Lazenby, I don't think his acting is all that great, but that's just me. Okay, number 5, and I don't think any of these are going to come as a shock in a way because, George Lazenby had the least amount of Bond films. The guy with the second least, number 5, Timothy Dalton. He only had 2. And after watching his 2 Bond films, I'll say this. He's not as bad as I thought he was going to be. He's actually, decent. He's decent. The Living Daylights, I don't really care much for his Bond. He does a lot of, really weird, serious looks into the camera. Don't really care for that. He seems a little over the top because I know he comes from a more, traditional acting, really dramatic. When he's on the boat and he's like, it's Bond, James Bond. And he was like, give me an hour. Make it an hour and a half. His hairdo looks weird. I know someone brought up, I think it was Calvin and David from the Bond Experience. They brought up when they were talking about License to Kill that his hair is so slicked back he looks like Dracula or something like that. His performance in License to Kill I like, and I think it's pretty good. I mean, probably my favorite moment that he had is when she's like, Felix's wife at the very beginning was like, here, James, take this. And he's like, nah, no thanks, I'm good. And she's like, you sure? And he was like, nah, I'm good. He's like, have a good night, guys. And she's like, well, why was he weird like that? And Felix is like, well, he was married once. And he's like, but that was a long time ago. It's a good, just hey, I'm not looking to do anything like that. I'm not, I don't even joke about marriage after the crap I went through. So just, keep it moving. So, yeah, I liked all that. And like I said, he's solid in License to Kill. I like him. And I do think he does a good job acting where he's getting Sanchez on his side. If we would have got maybe 2 more Timothy Dalton films, he might have ranked higher for me. Who knows? I don't know. And I know people give him a lot of credit for what Daniel Craig decided to do with his Bond, being really serious and cold. Okay, so on to my number 4. I have Daniel Craig. And I want to say this. It's not a knock. And honestly, it's so hard to pick. I think the first 2 guys are they're definitely the bottom 2. And then these 4, on any given day, I could rearrange them in just about any order. Just about. The reason I'm putting him at number 4 is just because he has a few very uncharacteristic Bond moments for me at least. I'm not saying that maybe if someone's read the Ian Fleming novels, maybe, it is characteristic of Bond, but in Casino Royale when he's like, well, then you're a bloody idiot. And she's like, excuse me? He's like, well, then you're a bloody idiot. And then it's like, she's obviously not going to do what you say. You called her a bloody idiot, and then you reinforced it and did it a second time. She's not going to go do what you say. So for me, that just felt like a weird thing. And I'm like, James Bond normally isn't just going to call someone an idiot. He's going to find something more slick to say. Or if he's trying to get a woman to do something for him, he will try to finesse her more than just be like, oh, you don't want to do what I want? Okay, you're an idiot. That didn't feel like a Bond moment to me. And I get he was frustrated and all that, but that didn't feel like a Bond moment. And he has, like I said, he has a few of those. He's also got some great moments. When he spares Vesper's ex-boyfriend at the end of Quantum of Solace, and then she's like, Bond, or M's like, Bond, I need you to be here or whatever. I need you to come back. He's like, I never left. And then he drops the necklace in the snow. He's got some really good moments. So once again, it's not a knock on Daniel Craig. in a week, you could ask me this, and I might be like, Daniel Craig's the best Bond. He probably is the best action Bond in the sense of how much of his own stunts he's doing and what he looks like when he's fighting. All that stuff's great. We saw Bond be maybe more vulnerable to Daniel Craig than we saw with any other Bond, but at the same time, I don't know if we actually felt like we got to, because what he does in No Time to Die with the whole, like, you've created something so beautiful, I didn't care for that. That didn't feel like Bond to me. So, yeah, some things are hit or miss. There's a lot of great things at Casino Royale. There's some things that I don't feel like he would say. Quantum of Solace, you could say the same thing. Skyfall, I never really feel like we get too much into the heart of James Bond. We don't really get a whole lot of like deep emotional moments. I mean, I do like where he kind of grills them about like, oh, take the bloody shot. Okay. When he flips the ejector seat and she's like, oh, go ahead, eject me. Like, that's all good stuff. Trying to think, Spectre, I don't know if he really has any like signature moments or moments that I'm like, oh, that's a good Bond moment. I mean, him on the train with the white suit, I like that. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if there is like a lot of like when he's definitely Blofeld's prisoner. I don't really care for that. And then No Time to Die. He's got good acting when he says goodbye to her, like at the train when he has to say goodbye to her at the beginning of the movie. That's good acting. And when he sees her again in the hallway, that's good acting. But yeah, I just think there's these other guys did certain things just a little bit better. But like I said, it's these top 4 guys. There's like no wrong answer in my opinion. Number 3, I got Roger Moore, and Roger Moore did a lot of great things. I think Roger Moore had the perfect like tone as far as when he would talk to somebody, the way he could like be charismatic. That's like perfect Bond for me. Where like he could charm his way into basically any situation. He definitely did that. It's not always with his looks, because he's not as suave as I would say these next 2 guys are. He's not that suave, but it's just like he's a classic British gentleman where it's like, how can you get mad at like Roger Moore? If Roger Moore walks up to you and is like starting to ask you questions, it's just hard to really like, if you were a bad guy, you'd entertain Bond because you're like, well, he's a polite gentleman. I mean, and if it was a girl, she's going to give him the time of day because he's at least being polite. And I mentioned like, Daniel Craig, in a way we got to a lot of, deeper emotional stuff with Daniel Craig's Bond and in his Bond movies. But in a way, like Roger Moore has a few scenes in his movies that I would almost say like resonates more, yet he says less. Like at the beginning of For Your Eyes Only, before he confronts Blofeld, he's at the grave of, Teresa Bond. And he, sets the flowers down, and he just kind of like looks up, and he just kind of like, or I think he's looking at her grave, and he just like kind of gives a look, and then a guy walks up and is like, hey, your boss called, they got a helicopter waiting for you. But like that look, I felt like, because obviously it hurt him, the losing his wife hurt him as a character, but it's like he keeps everything at a distance, and I think that's what Bond would actually do. I don't feel like Bond would be the kind of guy that's like, hey, I want to bring up Vesper again. I want to talk about her, which I'm not saying Daniel Craig's Bond does, but I feel like they wrote where like every character in almost every movie brings up Vesper at some point. It's like, hey, remember he really loved Vesper. I just feel like James would be like, I don't ever want to talk about her again. And he just wouldn't. He just wouldn't even acknowledge that. And yeah, I think Roger Moore does a great job. Spy Who Loved Me, he does it again where she basically hit the spy, Triple X, she brings up, she's like, and he was once married, and he was like, all right, you've made your point. Touche. Like, he just doesn't even want to entertain that. So, but overall, the reason I'm giving Roger Moore the nod over Daniel Craig is like Daniel Craig, when he walks in a room, if he charms someone, it's almost like, well, you got the suit, you look good, you look like you're in shape, whatever. Like, you can pull that part of being Bond off. But I don't always buy that Daniel Craig can naturally charm someone into like giving him information or getting something or being in a room. Like Roger Moore, I could buy he'd be in a room he's not supposed to be in, and he'd charm his way into being like, yeah, I'm supposed to be here, or you're going to tell me your plan, and I'll charm it out of you. Daniel Craig, not so much. Daniel Craig's like I'm going to sneak around, and I'm going to barge my way in. I mean, Casino Royale, he like goes through a wall. So for me, that's the kind of the difference of the two of like, I don't feel like Daniel Craig ever got to that level. But like I said, there's not really, I'm nitpicking with these top 4 guys. All right, my number 2 Bond, Sean Connery. Certain days I think about him and I would put him at number 1, and then, there's other days he's not. And for me, why he's above the previous 2 guys is, I've always said this about Daniel Craig, at least, and you could say about like a lot of guys. Daniel Craig as Bond walks into a room, and I think you look at him and you go like, that guy's probably an assassin the way he's dressed. He's probably like, government, Secret Service, something. He's a spy. Sean Connery walks into the room. It's partly because of his smile, because Connery will walk around and he like kind of has that like smirk to his face, like he's happy to be there. Connery walks into the room. He could be a spy, but he also could be like I've said it before. He could be like some rich like millionaire going to a casino to just like blow some money, like just a guy that likes to dress up, have a good time. He seems like he could easily be a businessman because of the way he's charming in that regard. So Connery, I always thought, had the best dichotomy of being able to play. Like, I like when he's having a good time, he's jovial, and then something happens and he snaps like that and he gets super serious. And I think Connery might be the best at that. The only reason he doesn't move in front of this guy is just well, there's probably two reasons. One, the action scenes that he was doing in the 60s, obviously they didn't know that much about martial arts like they do now. Technology is better. Wire work and all that kind of stuff is better if you had to do that. Stunt doubles, I think the way they've done that is better. So some of the fights are kind of goofy from back in the day if you watch Connery's fights. And the last thing I'm dinging Connery on, like I said, it's very small. I do think Connery is the best charmer of women. Like Connery, it's undeniable that, because I think he was voted the sexiest man alive like 2 separate times in his life. Even in the 80s when he was older, I think he still got voted sexiest man alive when he was like 60. So props to him, or 50, in his 50s. Props to him. But yeah, Connery, every time he gets into a room with a woman, it is completely believable that like she's... I'm not saying they fall head over heels where they're wanting to fall in love with him. I just mean like where they at least want to be in the same bed with him. It's believable. He just has this like confidence and charm, and every time he's like, yeah, I'm going to go in for the kiss, I'm going to go in for this, whatever, and he never thinks twice about it, and it works for him. And it's kind of believable. But my knock on him, my tiny ding, is that I don't think we actually ever buy that he's in love with any of these girls. And I think some of these other Bonds that we get, we actually buy their romance. And in Connery's case, I always just feel like he's using the girls. Like he's like, yeah, you're fun for now. And I, with a Bond girl, I think it should be more of like they're really enjoying each other's company instead of like being like, I just want to bang you and that's it, but I don't want to hear you talk. Connery's kind of like, I never feel like he actually wants to hear the girls talk. He just wants to get in their pants. I'm not saying that's not what Bond would do necessarily, but to buy a true romance in these movies or buy the connection with the girl, and I think that's why when I just did my Bond girl rankings, I didn't really have any of Connery's girls ranking that high. And I think part of it is just because Connery's busy trying to like, you know, get some, and he's not really trying to get to know you, the person. You don't really have any intimate moments with Connery. I mean, you have intimacy. It's just not the same thing. Okay, and then my number one, call me a 90s kid, that's fine, but Pierce Brosnan. Pierce Brosnan, he plays cool, suave, sophisticated. He can play classic gentleman. He can also play like snap your fingers, be ruthless killer. He can charm women, yet I feel like when he's charming women, it's not just, I want to, sometimes it might just be like, oh, come on, like, you know, let me get some. But I think the other part of it is I do buy, like him and Natalia, like I do actually buy that there's something like legit there. Him when he's falling for Elektra early on, I'm like, I think there's something actually there. I never bought his romance with Jinx and his romance with Wei Lin. Not really. It's just kind of there at the end. But Pierce has like, once again, like Daniel Craig, I feel like we got like maybe too much of his emotion and what he's going through. And Pierce, I feel like once again, like he, like Roger Moore, like they just kind of keep it at a distance. You might get a crack like for like a second of this might have emotionally like hurt them, and then it's like that's all you get, and then it's like you're never going to get close to me again. So I think Pierce, he's also one of the best like looking Bonds, and I mean I'm a straight guy, but I mean that as like him in a suit. I'm like, yeah, I'd want to wear that. I want to look like that guy. I want to look like that guy. He just had everything, and for me, I would love if they ever did like if they ever brought back an old Bond, like if they brought Pierce Brosnan back, and he's like he's now 70. I think he's 70 or 71. If they brought Pierce Brosnan back to do like old man Bond, oh, I would love it. I would love it. Because he's my favorite, like I said. And I think him going out on Die Another Day, if they can't figure out the next Bond actor, why can't you just do like a one last mission? I know he's 70. I get it. But he could still play like gentleman spy, I feel like. And he don't have to like be punching and kicking everybody doing martial arts. Like he's got a gun. Let him be still a really good marksman at 70. But anyway, that's it for my rankings. If you disagree with it, that's fine. Like I said, the top 4 guys, I won't really argue with you. I just would say if you're arguing for any of the last 2 guys to be higher up in the list, I don't really get it because there's just not enough material there to go above the guys before them. And if if God forbid, if any of the, well, Connery's gone, Lazenby's old, Brosnan's obviously still around, Daniel Craig, he just got done. If any of these guys ever see this, they won't. But if they do, I loved all of your performances. So, yeah. So anyway, this is it. Me signing out as a Bond fan. I probably won't bring up any Bond content for, like I said, a couple years until the next movie comes out. But it's been fun. But I'm also relieved to be done and I can move on to something else. But I still love Bond. But have a good one, guys.